Some things in Santa Clara never make it onto the scoreboard, but they show you what the building truly values. Kittle just opened a rare door into Kyle Juszczyk's hidden workload, and that ties into another clue. Osa Odighizuwa is already earning respect inside the building through detail, work, and standard. Then comes the Aiyuk situation, where the backroom drama has turned into a chess match of contract, pride, and deadlines. And at the end, a massive proposal for an elite pass rusher puts the 49ers window right back under the spotlight. Hit that like, subscribe, and let's walk into this hallway. The most revealing part of what George Kittle said is not just the praise, it is the type of praise. Because when a star offensive player talks about another guy and does not begin with touchdowns, catches, clean stats, or highlight plays, he is showing fans what they usually never see. The guy who keeps the machine running when the play gets messy. And with Kyle Juszczyk, that is exactly what this is. Kittle went on new heights during all the tight end university buzz, and when he was asked about Juice, he basically opened up Kyle Shanahan's secret offensive manual. He talked about how much they put on the fullback's plate, the pre-snap motion, the timing with Brock Purdy's cadence, the blocks that change mid-play, that moment when a tackle picks up a different defender and suddenly Juice has to fix the math in real time. That is real behind-the-scenes football. No glamour, no camera zooming in on the name after the play. This is the player who understands the design before the ball is snapped, feels the mistake happening, and patches the play before it falls apart. When Kittle calls Juszczyk the offense's fixer, he is saying San Francisco trusts him to solve problems in the middle of the chaos, and that is where his value gets bigger than it looks. Juice has had stretches where he showed up more as a receiver, especially on creative play-action calls, leaking out across the formation and punishing distracted defenses. Now that usage feels more selective. Part of that is preservation, because the invisible work already takes a toll. Part of it is the roster, because the 49ers have other options catching passes. But his value has not dropped, it has simply moved somewhere else. Inside an offense built on detail, motion, angle blocks, and shared reads, Juszczyk is almost an extension of the coach on the field. And that is why the contract piece matters. He is in the final year of his deal, but if the conversation inside the building sounds anything like Kittle's, it is hard to imagine the 49ers treating him like a disposable piece. Some roles do not scream. They hold everything together. The second clue comes on the other side of the ball, and it might be one of the most important pieces of the entire offseason. Osa Odighizuwa is not arriving as a spreadsheet name. Based on the way Kyle Shanahan talked, he is arriving as the kind of player the building notices quickly. And when a head coach praises not just talent, but preparation, detail, routine, and the way a guy brings others with him, that hits different. Because the 49ers defensive line does not just need another body, it needs to get its authority back. It needs to get back to that feeling where the opposing offense feels squeezed before the ball is even snapped. And that kind of rebuild does not happen only because one edge rusher wins outside. It starts inside, where the quarterback decides if he can step up comfortably, or if the pocket is closing right into his chest. That is where Osa becomes both a behind-the-scenes piece and an impact piece. A casual fan might look at the trade with Dallas and say, good defensive tackle, solid addition, move on. But inside the 49ers structure, this kind of player moves several pieces at once. If he can create pressure inside, Nick Bosa stops being the only fear point. Offensive lines cannot just slide protection one way. The center has to help earlier. The guard has to think before climbing to the linebacker. And suddenly, pressure that looked isolated turns into a system. Shanahan saying he has been extremely impressed since Osa arrived is not an empty line, especially after a year where the pass rush needed answers. He pointed to how Osa works, how he handles his own preparation, and how he helps other players. That is trust language. That is usually what you hear when a coach sees a pro who does not need to be pushed to understand the standard. And there is also the outside read. ESPN viewed the move as one of the 49ers' best offseason additions, and an NFL executive liked the value, a quality defensive tackle for a third-round pick with a strong scheme fit. That matters because it supports the feeling that San Francisco did not just buy depth, they bought a chance to restart the heart of their defensive front. The point is simple. Osa does not need to be a headline every week to justify this bet. If he pushes the pocket, eats blocks, brings stability against the run, and forces offenses to respect the interior, the whole defense breathes differently. Then Bosa gets better angles. The linebackers get cleaner lanes. The defensive backs get that extra half second that changes a route. It is still early. Training camp will put pads, contact, and real reps on this evaluation. But when the first noise coming out of Santa Clara is about work, leadership, and fit, I listen. Because a contender is not just looking for flash, it is looking for the guy who changes the environment before he changes the stat sheet. The Brandon Aiyuk situation has moved way past normal off-season noise. This has turned into a behind-the-scenes power struggle where every public move is trying to push the other side into a decision. And the uncomfortable part for Aiyuk is that so far, the noise does not seem to have given him control of the table. He went after the team, the front office, his former agent, the NFLPA, posted videos, turned up the public pressure, and made it clear he wants out of San Francisco. The problem is, public pressure does not work by itself when the contract still ties the player down and the franchise has reasons to wait. Like it or not, the 49ers are looking at this as an asset, a deadline, and a consequence. Not as a drama they have to solve just because the internet is tired of it. His status on the reserve/left squad list is exactly what creates the knot. San Francisco already voided future guarantees. There is the possibility of trying to recover more than $18 million already paid, and there is still a date that starts tightening the clock, September 1st, when a $9.56 million option bonus enters the conversation. So the building does not have to act on the player's emotional timeline. But it also cannot pretend the calendar does not exist. That is where Tom Pelissero's read on The Rich Eisen Show comes in. Aiyuk's strongest move may not be posting another video or trying to pressure the franchise from the outside. It might be doing the opposite of what he said he would do. File for reinstatement and show up at the facility when training camp opens on July 25th. If he does that, the 49ers have to respond. And based on Pelissero's read, the response probably would not be to just put him back on the roster like nothing happened. The more likely path would be letting him go. See how that changes the whole picture? Aiyuk said he would never go back to the facility unless he was a visiting player. But if his real goal is to leave, walking into the building might be the only card that forces movement. He would be stepping inside the system to make the system decide. And I am going to defend the 49ers straight up here. San Francisco cannot reward chaos just to look nice. Aiyuk is talented, nobody has to erase that. But talent does not give you automatic permission to run the franchise through the side door. If he wants out, he has to play the right card, not just turn the volume up. Now I want to hear from the Niners war room. If Aiyuk shows up at training camp, should the 49ers cut him right away and end it, or hold every last bit of leverage they can? Because to me, the message is tough. Whoever controls the building still controls a big part of the game. And now comes the story that makes any meeting room go quiet for a few seconds. Maxx Crosby tied to the 49ers again. Not as an active deal, but as one of those heavy ideas that keeps coming back because the football fit is too obvious to disappear. The starting point is simple. San Francisco is going to have interest in any scenario that puts an edge rusher at that level next to Nick Bosa. How could they not? This defense needs to get back to hurting quarterbacks consistently, and Crosby is the kind of player who changes the mood of an entire offensive line. But the real backroom conversation is never just, do you want him or not? It is price, timing, roster health, draft capital, age, contract, and most of all, the courage to decide that the window right now is worth more than part of tomorrow. The story gets even more interesting because the Raiders reportedly had a deal in place to send Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens before Baltimore backed out at the last moment. After that, Crosby stayed in Las Vegas, even with all that future uncertainty hanging around. His response to a young fan asking him to join the 49ers only fed the imagination. I can't. Hey, I still appreciate you doing your homework though. You never know. That is not a wide open door with bright lights over it. But it is also not the kind of line that kills the conversation forever. The proposal from Fansided's Austin Bundy is the kind that forces the fan base to stop joking and actually do the math. The 49ers would receive Maxx Crosby, and the Raiders would receive a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 second-round pick, and Michael Williams. Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report had already suggested the same structure before, so this package has become a popular framework for what the price could look like. And this is where it hurts. Because Crosby is still in his prime at 29, and he would solve a lot immediately. A front with Bosa, Crosby, Osa inside, and a healthy rotation would not just be good, it would be a warning to the entire NFC. You cannot protect everything. You cannot double everybody. You cannot breathe comfortably on third down. But putting Michael Williams in the package changes the whole taste of the conversation. The 49ers drafted him in the first round. He is coming back from an ACL injury, and there is a development bet there. Moving Michael would be San Francisco admitting it prefers Crosby's ready-made impact over the future upside of a young defender. And honestly, both sides make sense. A patient franchise looks at Michael and thinks 5 years. A hungry franchise looks at Crosby and thinks January. My instinct? If Las Vegas ever actually listened to something close to this during the season, the 49ers would have to discuss it without fear. Not because draft picks do not matter, they matter a lot. But when the window is open, the building has to know